special? What is something that you can do that nobody else can? It is this particular trait that might make you special in a band of people. You see, when I first started this idea of the caper, I had this grandiose idea of the perfect thief. This masterful, unchallenged, unparalleled skill. And that's not what it's about. A caper is this lovable thief. And the thief is never alone. He's surrounded himself with charismatic, extremely skillful, kind of specialized individuals. My original caper was Lupin III. Now, some of you probably haven't heard of Lupin III. This English man has kind of surrounded himself with a wandering samurai that doesn't kill, the world's laziest sharpshooter, and an on again, off again, on again, off again, on again, off again, trigger-happy, explosive expert, ex-girlfriend. Now, how they work, I'm not sure, but this journey of the caper is told in this kind of slapstick comedy, almost Charlie Chaplin-esque, where they travel too far to the right and travel too far to the left, and everything falls down, and somehow what fell down saves the day. It's because things ended in this horrible, terrible catastrophe that things went so right. They were already in a state of bad, but they go worse, and that's what makes it better. Now, if you've never heard of Lupin III, it's a bit to take on. There's 3 full complete TV series and 9 different movies. So I recommend starting here, at the Castle of Cagliostro. Here, it's this more heartfelt, warming experience where Lupin III talks to his audience member, this beautiful young lass, and he says to her, "Oh, what a terrible thing. The girl believes in the power of the evil magician, but she won't try to believe in the power of the thief. If only she would believe in him. He'd be able to fly through the air or drain the lake of its water." And in fact, it's because his audience member believes in him that he's able to do these things. He accomplishes these great, amazing tasks because she believed. And we want to believe that they're doing the wrong things for the right reasons. And that's what makes us love a thief. But this is my experience. Here's something you might like a little better. 2013's Now You See Me. And here I'm choosing as my official caper, Daniel Atlas, the showman. Accompanied by the sleight of hand, Miss, 2 S's, direction, and the mentalist. They journey together and call themselves the 4 Horsemen. This movie is based on the premise of the closer you look, the less you see, which is absolutely true. Because if you watch it for what it is, it's this magical, illusionist mystery that if you think really hard, you might be able to solve the problem just in time before they reveal the answer. But underneath it, you have the caper, this journey of this vagabond ragtag bag of misfits that come together to right a bunch of wrongs and gain an audience following. They righted a murder from nearly 40 years past. They stole from a banker that invested in fraudulent products, and they reimbursed a bunch of Katrina victims from the insurance company that did them wrong. And that's where you get the audience. Now, sure, it helps they usually give their audience members a little bit of money, sometimes 32 million. But in their final stage, their final act, they premiere they're going to jump out on this building. And here you see the audience members on the building, in the building, under the building, on the street, across the street. Everyone has come from far and wide to show just how much they love this caper. Of what this caper means, standing up against the authority figures, making a difference in the world. 4 men, individuals, taking on a nation, all by themselves, and winning, I might add. But here in accomplishing these tasks of questionable morality, they acquire something they could have never stolen, a home. Now, in Now You See Me, it's this organization called the Eye. This organization, again, is well known in the magical world for righting wrongs and finding the truth of what lies underneath. In Lupin III, it was they found each other. By accomplishing these great feats of thief, grand larceny, they find each other. And again, I'm not sure how they work, but they do. So come with me on a journey into the past, and I'll tell you of potentially the original caper. Some will tell you of lords and knights, and others of yeomen good. But I will tell you of Will Scarlock, Little John, and Robin Hood. They were outlaws, 'tis well known, but men of noble blood, and many a time their valor was shown in the forest of merry Sherwood. Upon a time it chanced it so, as Robin would have it be, that all three a-walking would go, some pastimes for to see. And as they walked the forest along, they all three were aware of three young men clad all in green array. With brave long blades by their sides and forest bills in hand, young Robin cried out to these men, and charged them all to stand. "Why, who are you," says bold Robin, "who stands so bravely here?"
"Why, we three belong to King Henry. We are the keepers of his deer."
"The devil thou art," says Robin Hood, "I'm sure it isn't so. For we are the keepers of this forest, and that you soon shall know. So lay your coats on the ground, and so too shall we three, and bring your swords and bucklers round, and try for victory."
"We be content, though bold outlaw, our valor's here to try. And we'll make you know before we go, that we fight and never fly."
"Well, then take up your arms, and cease this foolish prate." Excuse me. "And cease this foolish prate. Let us try this out with blows instead, for cowards we do hate."
And here is one for Will Scarlock, and another for Little John, and I myself for Robin Hood, for he is stout and strong.
And they fell to it hard and sore on this midsummer day. From 8 o'clock till 2 and past, they all showed gallant play. Here Will and Robin and Little John, they fought most manfully, until their wind was spent and gone. And Robin cried willingly, "Oh, hold, says Robin Hood. "I see you be brave men, but please let me blow my hunting horn, and then we'll fight again."
"That's a bargain to make, you sly outlaw, therefore we deny. One blast of your hunting horn, still we fight, and never fly. So here fall on, or else be gone,
And yield to us the fight, and let it be known throughout the land that we did not hide in broad daylight." "Well, if that's what you want, then let it be so. Just yield to me your names, and through the forest of merry Sherwood we shall praise your fame."
And with our names, you sly outlaw, where are you to go? Nay, you stay here and fight it out. Our names you shall not know."
"Well, then we fight no more," says Robin Hood. "We're all of valor stout. So come with me to Nottingham, and there we'll duke it out. Yet with ale we'll chug it out, we'll drink the day away. Make you no mind, have you no fears? I have gold enough to pay." And off they went to Nottingham, with drink to make amends. For 3 whole days the wine did chase, and drank themselves good friends. And so it was, ever after, all brethren they'll be, for Robin loves those men of heart and hand, that fight and never flee, and joined the band of merry men, making right their part. For Robin could not best their blade, yet still he stole their heart. Thank you.
Where'd you get your hat, Kreighton?
Party City. Nothing special.
You did this presentation in storytelling. Can you tell us why you chose to use a rhythmic poem
So-
as opposed to tell us a story? What's
Yes.
the rationale?
So when I came to the story of Robin Hood, as of course the original caper, the one we most commonly think of, it was most commonly told in a song. It was a ballad, I believe is the official term. And it was a bard that was the one telling the story. And I do not have the musical capabilities to do a bard, neither vocally nor instrumentally. So I chose to do the more lighthearted version of a jester, where he speaks song. So that's where the ballad came in from the jester perspective. And I attempted to do my own version rather than stealing from Joseph Francis James Child, clerk of the Church of England. And it focused heavily on alliteration, which is what I looked into jesters for. And it was fencing and frolicking and frantically panicking, and it was terrible. So that's where I stole from Francis James Child. 11 different versions, which just goes to show you the different types of printing press and how it was copied down at the times. So focusing heavily on the ballad, but making it spoken word and extremely lighthearted slapstick comedy, which calls back to my original version, Lupin III.
Do you think it would have made it more understandable for your audience if you had given that background before? Have you thought about that as a possibility?
I did emphasize the slapstick comedy in Lupin III, and that was the only, I believe, movement I did in my original presentation, where it was, again, carrying the clock, two part of the left, two part of the right, and again, it's the catastrophe that makes it perfect.
So you gave the modern example of Now You See Me, and you kind of talked about Robin Hood, which was the more common, older folktale story. How can you justify what a caper does from like a moral standpoint?
Because you want to believe. It's not, you're right, it is a question of morality, but you genuinely, as an audience member, want to believe that they are doing the wrong thing for the right reasons.
Does the end justify the means?
It's a question you'll have to ask yourself. You're the audience member.
In your opinion?
Yes. Yeah. Teacher.
So kind of playing off the last question, in our last presentation that we got to witness, we saw it suggested that the storyteller is not necessarily responsible for the story, but it's the audience and the more mature audience members, the parents, that are supposed to be drawing like the morals out of the story. Would you agree with that? Given the fact that the caper is, obviously morally promiscuous, and we could have the same questions, like what kind of ideas and values are we giving to our children by having heroes like this?
So unfortunately, I read through all the ballads of Robin Hood, and I can tell you right now, that is not for a child. Surprisingly so, Disney has taken that aspect of Robin Hood and really, I don't want to use the term dumbed it down, but made it lighthearted, and again, I added that slapstick comedy. So pulling the values from it, it is definitely supposed to be a harder read, specifically for Robin Hood. Now You See Me, I believe, was rated PG-13, so we are looking at a slightly larger audience in general. But keeping it slapstick comedy makes it easy for kids to understand that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And again, that concept of doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. They may not understand it as children, and that's why the comedy is so heavily valued. Again, that Charlie Chaplin-esque, where things have to go wrong before they go right. And there's not a better way to explain that. But sure, yes, parents have to draw that out, but again, a lot of times these stories are rated at a slightly older, if you will, audience.
I noticed the common theme with the three examples you give is usually underdog fighting against the system kind of thing. You're saying the reason or why an audience might believe them is they're doing the wrong thing for the right reason. Is it possible for it to be from the other perspective, I guess, from probably the bigger system doing the wrong thing for the right reason of the many?
That kind of goes against the idea of the caper, but if you want to look at a little higher class version of the caper, I recommend you to Ocean's 11, where it is that money and technology, the higher class version of the caper, where it is kind of questionable, like they're really just out for the money, and they do end up righting some wrongs, but it's very, I don't want to say unintentional, but it feels unintentional as your audience member, a viewer of the movie. And depending on how you get into that and whether you're watching the original or the remake, it makes a big difference.
He was saying how the traditional story is like an underdog hero against a greater system. Do you think that the caper is inherently anti-establishment in any way?
I mean, yes. When I started this, I said things are bad and they have to get worse before they get better. So here we have the example of the government being bad, whether it's King Richard, apparently a bunch of bankers, or in loop on the third is the investigative team from the World Police Organization, the WPO. And it's again that sense of like they're doing the wrong things and the caper is doing the wrong things for the right reasons, which means it's a matter of what's supporting them and the reason of why they're doing it. So is the government the bad people? Not necessarily. It's why they're doing it is what's bad. Jordan?
So from a Christian standpoint, do you think I want to know your personal opinion on, do you think it's our job necessarily to be doing the wrong thing for the right reason and basically trying to get justice for that when that's not really our job or position?
Christian perspective, lovely aspect. Don't you think that God has used wrongdoers or sinners to bring those to good or bring those to justice? Because I can think of at least a few examples where that is prevalent. So you can kind of explore your own aspect, but if God does it, I absolutely think that we should too. Yeah. Anti-hero would be where we're going for. I don't want to say vigilante because they start with internal motives. It's not, like this Batman, if we're going to target him, he's out to make things right. That is his goal, okay? Here we are stealing, we're essentially doing something very wrong that happens to make things right. We're righting these wrongs by accomplishing a separate goal. So I'm sure Batman does steal at some point in time, let's say mass weaponry. I don't necessarily know Batman that well. Based on more recent, I focused heavily on the Kryptonian perspective, and that's just personal preference. I've always preferred the Superman versus Batman because of the cultural dives that it dives into. Perspectives.
Thank you, Kreighton. Your Q&A's gone longer than your speech.
Thank you, I think.